Hey, Bigpod.
Hey,
So last week I was on Arch Linux. What distro do you think I'm on this week?
knowing you, it's probably something overkill, stupid like Gentoo.
I don't think Gentoo is overkill or stupid. Cause
Our opinions differ.
yeah. For one thing, first of all, I have WebSocket controls for OBS.
Great,
That's important to me. That's important to me.
great. I could have them too if I set them up.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, you see, Arch Linux, the official OBS package, for some reason still does not have WebSocket controls as an option, which means
interesting.
so I checked their package build file, and they're pulling from the GitHub release file, not the CDN file that OBS Studio provides, which their official packaging instructions say to use that one because of the WebSocket issue. Don't know why. That's just how it is.
Interesting. Well, cue the music.
I guess. Hey guys, welcome to No Tux Allowed, a Tuxbase Media Group production. I am your host, Josh, and today I'm wearing the white t-shirt that I am, at this point, very well known for. And joining me today is our traditional co-host, Bigpod,
Hello.
who is wearing a shirt.
Yes,
Better than no shirt.
exactly.
Yeah. So, Bigpod, we
What?
touched quite a bit on AWS last week.
Yes,
Like, quite a bit. And we weren't expecting them to, come out with, a summer report so quickly.
but I did.
Yeah, I know, right? I know.
Yeah.
So, let's see what we got right here when we were talking about this. So,
Yeah.
it does. It's a bit of a lengthy report, but
Exactly.
they mentioned a few different topics here, and we've got a complete timeline here with if you guys might not know, AWS basically hit downtime starting October 19th at 8:48 p.m. PDT, which I assume is Pacific time.
Yes, Pacific
Yeah, yeah,
Daylight Time, I think.
yeah. I think so. And
Which
they
makes
got
sense for AWS, probably Seattle based or something like that,
yeah something
or
like that.
Silicon
But
Valley based, something of that set.
yeah, and this outage went on until about 2:20 p.m. October 20th, which is basically the next day. Basically, this was an overnight outage for Amazon, but not
Yeah,
necessarily everybody else.
overnight in the morning.
Yep, yep. So, in the event you were trying to figure out why you couldn't log into Fortnite in the middle of what was that, a Monday or
Yep,
something like that, on a Monday morning, that would
morning,
explain it.
Monday morning, which for Europe would mean basically the whole day.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. So, uh, the service disruption happened in the data center in Northern Virginia, sorry, which is better known as US East 1. People joke that if you scratched out Northern Virginia with US East 1, everybody in tech space would know what that is on a map. But yeah, so DynamoDB was the first thing that fell down. Which, what even is DynamoDB? Let's recap. Josh, do you remember what DynamoDB is?
It is. So DynamoDB is like a database that they use for calling all the functions of AWS.
Well,
It
kinda.
kinda. I
DynamoDB
don't
is
remember exactly.
their premier offering in NoSQL databases. So, at about 11:48 p.m. on October 19th in the PDT time zone, they had increased error rates on the DynamoDB API. Well, for the reason that happened was DNS. So now we should go into why DNS even mattered. So when you have so many servers as AWS, you have services that are run across many servers to provide resiliency, to provide scalability, and just in general to provide more power. And at one point, these servers hop because it's AWS and they constantly maintain quorum, and they maintain that the servers are properly properly sized. And if there is too much capacity wasted by not being used, they will shut some servers down. That's why they front the entirety of the service behind the DNS name instead of just an IP. So what happened was they have a basically a service called DNS Planner that essentially takes what machines have DynamoDB on are active to receive requests. Okay, I'm gonna put them behind this DNS name, this host name. Okay, and at that point, apparently, what came to be essentially a race condition. So, DNS Planner plans a set of DNS routes. Then they have this thing called DNS enactor, which takes the plan that DNS Planner made and it deploys it onto a server, onto the or not really onto a server, but onto their service called Route 53, which runs with which does a basic transaction over the previous set of IPs, previous set of records, which is actually a pretty smart idea, having a transactional way of changing IPs instead of just changing DNS records. Well, they happen to run this DNS enactor, in all the availability zones inside the US East one. So essentially, availability zone is essentially a separate building with separate power and separate internet in the same complex. So we have a data center complex of US East 1, you have AZ1, AZ2, AZ3, which are three separate buildings, three separate powers, and three separate internet connections. So basically, they are redundant of each other if there is a localized failure. Let's say, for example, that power is cut, so other AZs shouldn't be affected. Or if, let's say, a server goes, yay, I'm gonna do fireworks now and start burning, all other AZs are completely unaffected. Now, what happened was, since the enactor runs in all three availability zones and executes the plan from all three availability zones, what appears to happen was that in one of the zones, the enactor ran with some sort of a latency hit, and it took a long time for the enactor to finish the plan. While in reality, back on Route 53 and DNS Planner already created a new plan, and then they have they have things like checkers if the plan is right or wrong. But what happened was there was some sort of a cleanup process happening in between. And once the new plan got enacted, the old plan still was working, and that basically went haywire. When new plan got enacted, there was no state of previous plans, because what it essentially does is the cleanup essentially takes the only leaves the youngest, let's say, 5 plans, and in between, like a couple of plans got enacted, and when the new, which is like really old plan came in, it saw that it should be that there is no such plan already enacted, so it enacted it, and that basically broke DynamoDB because wrong routes essentially. Well, and that basically broke DynamoDB routes for DNS, which then basically got public endpoints, DNS failure to connect to DynamoDB. For things like global tables, which is also run from US East 1, it started to successfully connect to replica tables in other regions, which is great. But it still experienced lag as things weren't exactly working, because normally US East 1 works and is the main one. And as soon as this happened, many of the engineering teams were dispatched, and by 12:38 a.m. October 20th, DynamoDB DNS issue was found. Temporary mitigation was applied not even an hour later, and by 2:25 a.m. All DNS information was correctly set up, so everything worked. And after some DNS expiration, at approximately 2:40 a.m. October 20th, the service was back up already, and users could access it normally.
Right. Now, the big thing was that DynamoDB was down for a while, which when that
Yes,
goes
3
down,
hours.
that does take out other things as well.
Yes.
In this case, being EC2, and of course their load balancer, I guess.
Many other services are dependent on DynamoDB because, well, if you have a really good database, why not use that really good database instead of deploying another database or some other things that you could do? Well, you're gonna use your really good database, especially when one of the big things in tech is the so-called dog fooding, or eating your own dog food. Essentially, eating what you make or testing what you make in production. Therefore, that's what they did. And here we go of our second failure. Well, EC2 consists in reality of many components, not just of hypervisor. Because what is EC2, Josh?
So EC2, I believe that is like their VM service, but for the most part, right?
Yes, it's their virtual machine offering.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's many components, not just a hypervisor. It's literally they have many workflow management system. They have a network manager system and a couple of other things. So at this point, well, what happened was one of the subsystems called Droplet Workflow Manager, DWFM, had a dependency on DynamoDB. And Droplet, in this case, is their host system, the server that actual VM runs on. So each server, so there is many DWFM, so many workflow managers running at the same time. And each one of them will claim set number of servers as their own servers, as the ones they are managing, the so-called leasing. So, and lease information and stuff like that are stored in DynamoDB. So when DynamoDB went down, the managers went down. Now servers aren't getting leased, therefore, and managers aren't active, so there is no new compute available. Which is why the error report was request limit exceeded or insufficient capacity, because from API perspective there was no more capacity to be used. And because of that, also all the actual servers that were online at the time were actually running and stayed running, and nobody who was just using VMs felt a problem unless they down the VM and try to app it again. When they solved the issue with DynamoDB, Droplet Workflow Manager came back up. Problem is they also have a second subsystem here that is a problematic, the so-called Network Manager. Not to confuse it with Linux Network Manager. This Network Manager is responsible for management and propagation of network states for all EC2 instances and network appliances. So think switches, think routers, think switching appliances, think firewalls and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's basically their software-defined network solution. Like,
Yes.
whereas like you see like these home lab people mess around with like TP-Link's Omada setup or Ubiquity. This is like Amazon's basically solution for that.
It goes even beyond what Ubiquity.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is literally software-defined networking. So literally everything happens in software. Even cables unplugging might happen in software. It's literally software-defined networking. It's something you might find in your system, like Open vSwitch, kind of to that level. My guess is they probably, as an OS, use Sonic, which is open source Linux, made by Microsoft. But who knows?
Yeah. Who knows?
Well, since this propagates information, yeah, if things aren't working correctly, it won't work correctly. Because guess what? This comes to the second issue of what is really known as thundering herd. Basically, thundering herd is when there is a lot of information coming in, because I don't know, things happen, information coming really quickly. Let's say, for example, a lot of servers start yelling, I'm here, give me information," and the program that does it just says, "I give up, I quit," and crashes. I think to Josh I explained it using a DMV worker standing at his desk while everybody tries to give him a form into his hand.
Yep.
That's basically the you give up at some point when you have like 100 forms in front of you, 100 hands with form in front of you. You give up at some point. But
Which, of course, while you gave up on that, because you gave up on it, you also took down the load balancer, so you couldn't even ask your friends to help you.
yeah,
Which, if you don't know what a load balancer is, effectively it's the thing that tells you that so at a very high level, a network load balancer is just a thing that directs traffic.
yeah,
And it just directs traffic according to some algorithm. In this case, in mostly in Amazon's case, it's just redirecting traffic to wherever there's compute available.
yeah.
For the most part.
Let's talk with load balancer a bit later because it's actually the third incident. Well, when all the systems came up and running back up, so when the Droplet Workflow Manager came back running, and all the lists got once again repopulated, many VMs started getting back up, especially those that are automatic startup that might have been knocked out or stopped before the issue happened, and many other systems, and because a lot of servers were being added into essentially the host cluster, a lot of new information had to be propagated. So everything started yelling at Network Manager, add me in, add me in to the configuration, propagate my configuration. At which point, well, Network Manager started getting slower, started doing some slow things because it had a huge backlog, and well, it couldn't keep up with the backlog. At which point, engineers started to make sure that the workload was lower. To probably they added new service into the network manager. At which point configuration got properly propagated by 10:36 a.m. So that's probably on October 20th, which is now like about 10 hours into the actual outage. And at this point, new EC2 instance launches could happen. Which even when my network manager was having problems, even if you were able to start the image, start the EC2 instance, it wouldn't help you anything, because guess what would happen? It would say it's running, but you wouldn't be able to access it because intra 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 network communications. So essentially, once you get in the data center, communication wouldn't be working correctly to route to your VM. So we had to all wait until network manager was fixed for everything to work. And that brings us to the third major issue: network load balancer, aka NLB. They had, as Josh said, load balancer essentially does. I would add to the top of that load balancer's main task is, if you have many things that do the same thing, it decides based on a protocol where to route. So, but in AWS case, everything basically, if you're doing things seriously, you're gonna have a load balancer in front of your VM instead of directly an IP attached to your VM. You're gonna have a load balancer for some reason. Well, that failed as well, mostly because of network manager, from what I understand. Because there were failures in network manager, our friend the NLB also failed. And while that was happening, there were health checks that were failing, and sometimes failing. Even if the note for the load balancer was up and the backend system was up, aka the EC2 instance, it sometimes just failed health checks and it was removed from the fleet of load balancing, which is just weird, especially for a service to work. It's not necessary. Well,
Yeah. So they do mention that some other services went down, such as Lambda functions, and I saw another one on here.
there were
SQS
SQS
Kinesis
failure
event
and Kinesis.
sources and so on. But
Of course, things like Kubernetes failed, and ECS, EKS, and Fargate, because these two services very much depend on EC2.
yep.
There were
So
also like Connect failures. There was STS failure. What else? So IAM failure, of course,
yeah.
and
Well,
others.
anyways, this really just shows just how massive AWS is as a platform, and it's just a matter of time until they eventually go down again. Which is why you should probably listen to like what Bigpod was saying in last week's episode, where we talk about how we our examples being podcasters obviously might not apply to you like the web admin, but it might not be a bad idea to have like alternative services from alternative cloud providers just to at least attempt to diversify that field a little bit.
Yes, and
But
even if you want to have within the same cloud provider, because your company is a nuisance is in getting new contracts in, at least have in other regions. So if you have one in US East one, have at least one set of services in EU East one, or US West one, for example.
yeah. Now, Lighted, the one drawback to that is you might have to deal with more latency, but I'd rather deal with
Yes,
poor latency than no service at
and you
all.
must have to pay more. But guess
Yeah,
what?
that too.
Better now, I don't know, more money than when all hell breaks loose, having no service, and users hate you, which is better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyways, I think we're done talking about AWS for now. So let's move on to our next topic here because, I found this one kind of interesting. Because, Google, it makes a wonderful AI product called Gemini that,
Yeah.
Bigpod and I don't use daily, but, it's probably like the one AI that we talk about the most or that we consult the most when we actually run into an AI topic to talk about. Because, we just
Most of the time,
go.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. I am Gemini, an AI product developed by Google.
Thanks, phone.
I'm here to help with information and tasks. Would
Thanks,
you like
phone.
to know more about my capabilities or perhaps discuss a specific AI topic? It's fantastic that you find Gemini a wonderful AI product and a helpful resource for discussing AI topics. I'm glad I can be valuable in this conversation. Do you have a specific question about AI or topic you'd like to explore right now?
No. Well, Bigpod, that was an interruption.
Yeah. First one ever, but I guess
Yeah.
we shouldn't say the EXEA or whatever
Yeah,
it is.
something like that. So I
Or
guess we need to come up with like,
SIRI or
yeah,
whichever one else. At
yeah.
least we probably don't have to be afraid of saying the Microsoft one. Do you know her name?
It's not Cortana anymore, is it?
It was Cortana, and I think that's where they left off. There is no more a voice assistant on
Yeah.
Windows.
Yeah. Well, anyways, it turns out that Google's Gemini, when you ask it to research something, it's also not using the top links from the Google search result, just like you probably are because you're tired of all the SEO garbage. Instead, it's pulling oftentimes from domains that don't have a whole lot of traffic to them. The small third-party websites, or like the actual scientific articles.
Websites like
Sometimes,
10leadj.com, like bigpod.sc, and stuff like that.
yeah. And this was discovered by researchers from Rohr University in Bochum. RUHR. So I don't really know how you're supposed to pronounce that. Ruhr University, Bochum.
Possibly.
Yeah. And as well as the Max Planck's Institute for Software Systems, which they did publish report for this, but I'm gonna just drop the text article there because they do a pretty nice coverage on it. But
So about the university, it's German, so neither one of us knows really how to do German.
yeah,
So let's just say we went as close as possible as we can.
that's true. Delighted. So first of all, let's talk about how web search engines typically work. It used to be the case that when you used Google to search for something, Google's goal was to serve you the best possible website based off of your search terms. So, and they did a relatively good job of it, which meant that you could trust those first 2 or 3 website options.
Yes.
And then that's kind of gone downhill since people realized that Google is really good at looking for keywords. Let's just use recipe websites as an example, right? Let's look up a chicken pot pie recipe. I'm not going to do that because, heaven forbid, the first 10 or 12 articles that show up on Google search is just going to be SEO spam, completely and entirely useless. But that 13th to 14th article might actually give you a recipe.
Yep.
And it turns out that all these AI agents are just not even looking at the first 10 results. Oftentimes, they're just picking everything that's lower. Lighted.
Yep.
We do have to understand that search engines such as Google, they do have some some algorithmic optimizations for your user account, which I presume these universities accounted for for the study.
Probably.
At least I would hope so. But at the same time, this is just pretty interesting to look at here because we've seen a downtick in, people actually going to these small websites. But they are still being linked as sources by these AI agents.
Yeah.
So, it makes me wonder if, say, like, an article that I posted on tenleyj.com winds up being cited as, like, the number one source for something. Like, I think I have an article on OpenSUSE. and ChatGPT and Gemini both take like my talks, my one article about OpenSUSE as like the official source for all things SUSE. That could be a problem, right, Bigpod?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That could be a problem.
because that's not official documentation for the OpenSUSE project. They have a wiki for a reason, and they have help networks for a reason, as well as official forums, chat groups, and all that. OpenSUSE is basically like got everything when it comes to trying to get help, and it's all on official sites, which makes me wonder. Is just like, how often are people getting a bad result from the AI simply because the AI is just programmed to not look at the number one reporting result?
Probably quite a bit these days, especially for topics which aren't SEO compromised, shall we say.
That's true. Like, I know that if you're looking at like very niche scientific topics, or like or you're just asking it engineering questions, oftentimes AI does give you some relevant responses, because I've bounced like product ideas for my plastics company off of just ChatGPT. Go like, I wonder if ChatGPT knows a couple things here about like this. Like, what am I expecting to when I'm talking about like if I want to like make this kind of a product, and it gave me presentable information that I, as a guy that looked at business plan reports would look at. I mean, looked all right, but when I clicked on the resources, it was not pulling data from like say an ABS plastic manager's actual documentation, which by the way is available for free on the internet.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which that instead they're linking to some random third-party website from somewhere I've never heard of before, and it's not RJG, it's somebody else. So that's all. That answers that little suspect question. But anyways, I just thought I'd mention that here for our audience. It's a bit of a quicker topic for us, because this next one is a product of X. Now, if you don't know who X is, it's formerly known as Twitter. So, I'm probably going to accidentally drop Twitter a few too many times. I'm sorry. I still call it Twitter in like the real world. But, for the sake of the show, we're just going to call it X, because they announced a new encrypted chat messaging feature called, well, Chat, or otherwise known as XChat. And as soon as I saw that in the article, the very first thing I had to check, there's an IRC client called that.
Well, before we do talk about that, we need to talk about our source for this topic, TechCrunch, and
That's true.
And five pop-ups they opened for me on the page.
Okay. Let's hear this.
And the last one said, "Do you hate pop-ups? We do too." Yes.
Yeah.
And all of them are basically surrounding the same thing, basically giving them my email.
Yeah. Well,
After
anyways.
seeing two, I just closed them.
Yeah. I think we talked about that at some point where, just like the sheer amount of pop-up spam is becoming a problem on the internet too. But,
Yeah.
Anyways, XChat is, when I saw that, the very first thing I saw was like, isn't that an IRC client? And yes, it turns out that XChat is an IRC client. It's still maintained. It's been around basically forever. And so we might already be dealing with potential trademark issues with, using the name
Josh,
XChat.
another issue.
What's that?
How well did you read the text we have in front of us? Because even in the second paragraph, I can see so many M dashes. It's crazy.
Right? I see that as well.
Make your own conclusions.
Yeah. Well, anyways, this is end-to-end encrypted. And because, the developers that Elon hires aren't exactly like the brightest of people, I had to do a little bit of digging into this, Bigpod.
Really?
So, it is, in fact, theoretically, end-to-end encrypted.
Ooh, good.
But we don't know how they have it set up. But one thing we do know is that the passphrase for the encryption is only 4 digits long.
Oh, great. So it's a PIN code.
Right? It's just a PIN code. Nice and easy to remember for, an everyday user. However,
Yeah.
assuming that this is numeral only, so numbers, we have,
So if it's digits, it should be numerals only.
right? It should be. So if that's the case, we only have, 10,000 possible passwords, right?
Yes, exactly 10,000.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, I'm certain that if, I was a smart boy and I actually took the time to actually figure out a programming language, I could just come up with like a random number generator that gave all 10,000 possible options in a four-number sequence and probably have that
Yes.
render in less than 10 seconds on a modern system.
With hashing in tow. So yeah, no, that's gonna be cracked really quickly if somebody decides to crack it.
Yeah, and we already see like people constantly reporting about how their Twitter accounts get hacked. It's not going to be difficult to break this.
Let's remember they would literally take a message, copy it onto their system, and start cracking. And because messages, first of all, aren't long normally, because it's instant messaging. On top of that, the code isn't long. So what would happen is, even if 5 seconds, it would take. You only need to do it once, then you have the code. Here we go. I can crack all of your messages in less than a point 1 second. It's actually really, really, really bad.
Yeah. But it turns out that, security researchers have already caught on to this and mentioned a couple things here and talked about how how XChat is not using anything such as hardware security modules or HSMs to actually, store the keys. So this is also just all done in software too, because software is cheap.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, so it gets even easier to crack that. So according to Matthew Garnett, the security researcher who published a blog, this is trust us bro territory.
Yep. Exactly.
And of course, even in their about section in the X Help Center about concerning chat, they state the following: currently, we do not offer protections against man-in-the-middle style attacks. As a result, if someone, like a malicious insider or X itself, as a result of compulsory legal process, were to compromise an encrypted conversation, neither the sender or the receiver would know. We are, however, working on mechanisms for a future release that will. Which probably means that, they might add the ability to use alphanumeric in like their PIN code, and maybe
Okay,
change it from
so
a 4-digit PIN to a 6-digit PIN.
uh, just going to having actual like all characters. So that's what? How many characters are in the English alphabet?
26.
26. Okay, now we have 26 characters plus 10 characters of numbers, digits. So we have 36 characters. Even if you forget all the other characters that are on a keyboard, that is, even with 4 characters, there is now altogether more than one and a half uh, million options. Yeah, 1.679616 million options.
Yeah, it's like greater than 10 times the amount of options, which means that
It's
now that
greater than 100 times more options than just using numerals.
yeah, which is better, but it could be even better with that too. It could be
Yeah.
let's add more digits to the PIN. Like, let's change it from a 4-digit PIN to a 6-digit PIN. Now
Yep.
we're making that. Now we're adding even more potential passphrases, which just means that
And
basically,
with just 6 characters, we're going into the territory of billions, multiple billions.
yeah,
And if you add things like special characters, you could be going even with 4 characters into the territory of tens of billions. But remember, that's nothing.
that's
What you
true.
should be looking for is territory of quadrillions, if not numbers I don't even know the name of. We're talking 10 to the power of 20, 30. That's kind of options you should have. So we are talking about at minimum 12 to 16 characters. We're talking all the possible characters on the keyboard. That's your sweet spot. That's why passwords on the websites ask for 8 characters minimum. One day we should have a topic about passwords. I can go at it all day.
We probably could have a topic about passwords, and it probably would just go completely over my head because I just am lazy and I use a password manager.
Yeah, I do too. But I still know how passwords work.
Yeah, but anyways, uh, this is not the only issue that X has, because not only can you just look at all of the messages anyway, X also does not offer perfect forward secrecy, which means when you send out a new message, uh, on like other of these end-to-end encrypted platforms, every time you send a new message, technically that message has a different key from the previous one.
Huh.
Which that's referred to as perfect forward secrecy. Which X does admit they don't support that. Which would mean that, say, hey, I'm on like this account, but I received the message from like this guy, but I want to see like all the messages from this conversation. They can just look at that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that is another issue. I mean, I might not have described perfect forward secrecy a whole lot. Like
I have no
TechCrunch
idea
does.
what forward secrecy is. When it comes to encryption, I am a bit lost.
Yeah, yeah. But anyways, Garrett says that you probably shouldn't trust it, and I'll be honest with you, I don't trust it anyway, simply
Yeah.
because of the company behind it.
Yeah.
I would much rather trust Signal than X or Twitter,
Same.
because at
Same,
least
same,
Signal hasn't made all of their money off of invading user privacy.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
they've dealt with
Signal
the
doesn't
FBI
have an
raids
AI.
before.
Signal doesn't
That-
have an AI.
That's true. That's true.
That helps. Or isn't training an AI.
But we've also got Matthew Green, who is a cryptography expert that also teaches at Johns Hopkins University, who also says, for the moment, until it gets fully audited by somebody reputable, I would not trust this any more than I could trust a traditional unencrypted direct message. Yeah. So, obviously, TechCrunch did a thing, and they sent a couple emails off to the press address, which I didn't know that they had, but apparently they do.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if
That's a new.
we'll have to shoot them an email sometime and see if we can get a chat with them on the show just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
But anyways, they never responded to it. But the email did send successfully. Otherwise, they would have got a bounce back message and mentioned that.
Great.
So it supposedly works somewhere. It might just be a black hole. But anyways, guys, we gotta have a talk here. Bigpod,
What?
our show is not free.
No, it's not.
It's not. We pay to make this show. We pay an amount of money.
Yes,
It's not a lot of money. It's not a little bit of money. Because, we're spending more than, like, what other people reasonably should be able to do what we do. But that's just because we're savages. But anyways, we could always use some help. Go to patreon.com right now, you the listener. Patreon.com/NoTuxAllowed. Go there, click the join button, and, give us $1 or $2. In return, you might eventually get an email saying that, hey, click this link, and this is your new fancy podcast link. It comes with bonus stuff and a higher bitrate audio feed. We actually recorded a pre-show today.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's actually bonus stuff in there.
In the future, you may receive an email that says, try our new service.
That too.
Which at some point will happen. At some point.
At some point. Because, you're willing to give us money, so we might as well give you fancy, cool things that eventually we come around. It's not always going to be available at the lowest tier. And you might need to, say, move up to like $20 or something like that if we ever decide that we're going to like open up a Nextcloud instance for the public to use or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're ever going to do that, but that is an option. Because Bigpod.
Josh, you know what they say?
What's that?
Most content creators have merch. We have software.
That's true. That's true. Because one thing I can guarantee international shipping on. Software. I don't know if I can guarantee that with actual products, even though I wish I could. Because, if I just made a product, I can make it US only. Very easy.
Yeah.
It's when I'm shipping it across the border that it's a problem. But, anyways, poor Mimi here. Or, well, actually, this is Peaches, not Mimi. Mimi's on the floor trying to play with my feet right now. But poor Peaches here. She needs some food, so give us money on Patreoning, so I can feed this kitty here that's been patiently sitting here on my desk waiting for me to pet her basically for the entire show.
If you want to talk to us, you can send us an email at contact@tuxbase.com, and well, we will answer because we don't get a lot of emails, but if we will be happy. What else should we say at this point?
I mean, we could mention, Tuxbase.com/Discord.
Sure, that's a Discord.
Yeah, you can join the official Discord room for No Tux Allowed. Which, if it's Tuxbase.com/NoTuxAllowed and we start hosting other people's podcasts, we might need to change it up a little bit. But hey, that's a problem for later.
Yep.
It's called technical debt for a reason. But anyways, I think that we can wrap that up for a show for today, Bigpod. What do you think?
I think I agree.
Yeah. Bigpod and I, we need to go. It's raid time, so we're going to take off and go on an adventure in the world of Azeroth. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.